Hi again. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. My name is Gqeberha Ndodana, and I am your facilitator for this afternoon. So I would just like to welcome you to the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy's event in collaboration with the Sustainable Seas Trust. So our topic for today is Survivalist Entrepreneurs and mapping the experiences of informal recyclers in Gqeberha. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'd just like to make one or two announcements, which are, can I please request that you put your phones on silent, all right, so that we don't have any disturbances with the audio visuals as well as any disturbances with the dialogue that's going to take place. Fortunately, today we have two experienced academics that are going to be deliberating on the issues before us. And then just before they get into the topic, I'd just like to call upon the director for the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy, English, to come and give us the reasons why we're here and welcome you as well. Please give a round of applause for Prof. Begim Gomezu.
Salmoran. Yeah. I thought Vuyo was not going to respond. He was going to be punished for that. Not by me, but by Nhlax. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here. I'm mindful of the fact that there are people who are joining us online, and we are running a little bit late, so I'll cut to the chase and make sure that I do what I was asked to do, and not the 10-page speech that I prepared. I've reduced it to 1 page just to make sure that I comply. Program Director, Mr. Vuyo Ndodana, Nelson Mandela Community, more especially CANRAD staff, for putting this together. Colleagues from Sustainable Seas Trust, represented by the CEO, Ms. Janine Osborne, Dr. Oliver Lutz, and Ms. Palisan Tsaba, who brought us here, screaming and kicking. We're trying to do other things, but they made sure that we're all here. And also to ladies and gentlemen who are joining us, those of you who joined us physically, and then also those who are joining us through virtual platforms. It gives me a great pleasure to be part of this very important event. What excites me the most is the fact that the seminar is research-driven, in the sense that it presents the findings of an empirical study that was carried out here in Gqeberha. At CANRAD, we don't want to do events just for the sake of doing them. We do them because they speak to our mandate, and this is one of them. It is research-driven, and we appreciate the work done by the two colleagues here. As some of you would know, research constitutes one of the two legs of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy, that is CANRAD, as Vuyo said. Any university which does not provide or prioritize research is not worth the name. I don't care what university it is. If it doesn't prioritize research, then it is not worth the name, unless that university is characterized as a teaching university. If you are a teaching university, then you are exonerated. Otherwise, research must be at the forefront. Today's seminar topic is titled, I quote, Survivalist Entrepreneurs, Mapping the Experiences of Informal Recyclers in Gqeberha, end quote. This title implores us to reflect on the road that we have traveled since the country became a democracy in 1994. When the Freedom Charter was adopted in Kliptown, Soweto in 1955, it was envisioned, or it a liberated South Africa, as South Africa would look like. The extent to which we have achieved that goal, of course, remains questionable as to whether we have been able to subscribe to that. And the Freedom Charter stated, among other things, the following: there shall be work and security. In another chapter, ever as such, there shall be houses, security, and comfort. Whether we have all of these things, you be the judge. I'm not here to make any judgment. Almost 30 years since the new democratic dispensation, how far have we gone as a nation in achieving these goals? That's the question that we should be asking in the context of today's seminar. Moreover, to what extent have we as a country ensured that human rights enshrined in Chapter 2 of the Constitution are in fact enjoyed by all South Africans as well as non-South Africans who currently reside within the borders of our country. Today's seminar forces us to reflect on this and other pertinent questions, which we have to always look back to as we take stock of what we've been able to do or what we have failed to do since 1994. The story of informal recyclers in Gqeberha demonstrates the resilience of South Africans who have been failed by our politicians, because we have everything, it's just that our politicians have failed us. That is a fact. If you happen to see them, just tell them, I said so. If they have an issue, they can come to me, not to you. South Africa is not short of money. Let's agree on that one. South Africa is not short of money. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about money that has been squandered. How to squander money that does not exist? It's just like someone saying, I lost a girlfriend when he never had one in the first place. It would be a joke. And then, of course, South Africa is not short of policies and legislation. We have all of those. The only problem is lack of implementation. If we were to implement the policies and legislation that we have, it would be far better, and our colleagues here would not be forced to do this kind of research. In response to their predicament, those who operate in the periphery and who see their lives dissipating in front of their eyes have resolved to be their own messiahs. So in other words, they are redeeming themselves, which is why they are doing what our colleagues are going to be telling us about here. Collecting and selling scrap metals and other items for recycling has earned them a label, Survivalist Entrepreneurs, one of the terms that is used in the title. Sadly, little is known about these entrepreneurs, which is why our colleagues took it upon themselves to make sure they bring them in to the center stage. The study carried out by Dr. Lutz and SST, and the researchers who were part of the team, is in fact timely for South Africa, and it shows how far we have gone or how far we have failed to go. Today's seminar might be based on a case study, but it captures the essence of what similar hustlers are experiencing elsewhere in the country. With those few words then, can you please enjoy with us all this seminar? I look forward to the robust discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. He's our director, and we always take inspiration from him. So just to one quote from him, informal recyclers show the resilience of South Africans in the face of adversity. Now, in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce the two speakers that are going to be unpacking the issues for us. And the first one is Dr. Olivia Lutz, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at CANRAD at Nelson Mandela University. And Ms. Palesansala is a research assistant at the Sustainable Seas Trust. Now, I'm going to give the two speakers 35 minutes each to present their findings, and then from there onwards, we'll move on to the Q&A session. Ladies, over to you. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, first of all, thank you to everyone who joined us today for this discussion. I would just like to mention that together we will be presenting for 35 minutes, not 35 minutes each. So you won't be here the whole evening. We want to keep it concise and tight to give you an overview of what we've been working on. It cannot be denied that waste has become more than a problem plaguing the environment and has many implications. In 2017, South Africa, is this jarring, the sound, or is it just on my end? Is it okay? Okay, is it okay? In 2017, South Africa produced about 55 million tons of general waste, of which only 10% was recycled. This means that millions of rands were invested in landfill airspaces. Although waste is a huge problem, the informal recycling industry plays a significant role in South Africa's waste management system and generates income for thousands of people. The informal sector contributes to recovering between 80 and 90% of post-consumer paper and packaging, measured by weight. This means that the majority of recycled materials in South Africa is recovered by informal recyclers. Diverting recyclables from landfills saves municipalities between 300 and 750 million rands in a year. Yet, as the title of this seminar suggests, and Prof. Ngomezulu introduced to us, these waste reclaimers are often described as self-employed survivalist entrepreneurs because they remain poor and marginalised despite their contribution and resourcefulness. This seminar focuses on the informal recycling landscape in Gqeberha, drawing on qualitative interviews with sellers and buyers of recyclable materials. We here foreground the participants' understanding of their societal role, perceptions of discrimination, and sources of pride. Mapping these experiences provide recyclers with a platform to speak back at the dominant discourse on waste that assumes their lives and labor to be as disposable as the materials they work with. While we here focus only on some of the findings, it must be acknowledged that many other themes could also be discussed. Our discussion is structured by two of the project's original research questions, namely, who does waste work in Gqeberha, for what reason, and under what conditions? How do informal recyclers feel about doing this job, and in what ways do they express these sentiments? Our research collaboration is geared at answering these questions. We would like to add a note on terminology. The words we use to describe things are linked to the dominant political discourses that shape our perceptions and treatment of people, situations, and contexts. In South Africa, many terms are used to describe people who work in the informal recycling landscape. Waste picker remains the most common name, despite concerns about its condescending tone. Another common name often used in the Western and Eastern Cape is skarler. Following South African social science scholar Melanie Sanson, we prefer to use the term waste reclaimer to foreground that this type of work involves finding value from discarded materials. In the context of this research, we use the term waste reclaimer to refer to a person who depends on collecting, sorting, and selling recyclable waste on city street and landfill sites in order to survive materially. We use buyers to refer to participants who buy recyclable materials from waste reclaimers, and we refer to informal recyclers as an all-encompassing term to all individuals, waste reclaimers and buyers who work in the informal recycling industry. Our discussion today consists of 4 parts. Firstly, Palisa will give a brief overview of how this research project came about. She will then move on to mapping waste reclaimers in South Africa and in Gqeberha more narrowly by introducing the study's research participants. I will present the third part, which focuses on 3 interlinking themes based on our findings. These themes are centered on informal recyclers' understanding of their societal role, perceptions of discrimination, and sources of pride. Palisa will then conclude with a few key takeaways.
Good evening, everyone. You might be wondering how we undertook such a huge task. I don't know if you can hear me. So I met Olivia early in 2022, and she was looking for a buyback center in the city to interview for her postdoctoral project. She was new at the time in the city, and she didn't know where to start looking for the buyback centers. I happened to be working with one of the oldest buyback centers in Motherwell, which is now called the Motherwell Community and Enviro Hub. So I introduced her to the Motherwell Buyback Center ladies. And then later in 2022, we discussed areas of collaboration between SST and CANRAD in this work of recycling in Gqeberha. So initially we intended to interview individuals that are working at buyback centers. This includes managers and staff members. We also wanted to interview sellers, recyclable sellers. So the recyclable sellers are your waste reclaimers who sell to the buyback centers. So we wanted to do this to gain a better understanding of the relationship between the different role players in the recycling value chain, as well as looking at how recyclable material flows within the city. So you might be wondering what a buyback center is. So a buyback center are small depots where you take your recyclables to either donate or sell. So they act as middlemen between waste reclaimers and big recycling companies. So although we knew quite a significant number of buyback centers in the city, we soon realized that most of them were either closed down or they were no longer in operation. And this, one of the reasons was due to financial constraints or financial strains, and also the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. So now we decided to change or to adapt our study to not only include individuals that work at buyback centers, but also to look at people that work at swap shops in Gqeberha, to look at people that work at recycling spaces, who work as sorters, which is similar to the waste reclaimers, the work that waste reclaimers do. So we conducted the interviews in 6 locations, as you can see indicated on the map. So we decided to identify all the locations specially, as this would provide us with an opportunity to highlight the socio-political influences that are at play in these different communities. So the project evolved, as I mentioned, and it included, thank you, it included different people from these different locations. So we interviewed people that are working at the swap shops, we interviewed people that are working at scrap metals, because that's one of the huge things that's being undertaken here in Gqeberha. So our study soon changed from there. So this is our timeline for our study. So we submitted our ethics approval to the Humanities Ethics Committee of Nelson Mandela University. And this was to ensure that the interviews ensure the participants' anonymity as well as their safety. Now I'll be talking about the overview of recycling in South Africa, and I'll zoom in into Gqeberha and the study. Thank you. Waste reclaimers have played an active role in collecting recyclables since the 1990s. Now they are typically divided into 2. We have street reclaimers and we have the landfill reclaimers. The street reclaimers are those reclaimers that we'll see walking around our neighborhoods, going through the refuse bags and looking for recyclables. And the landfill reclaimers are those that are salvaging through the waste that is deposited into the landfill sites, looking for recyclables to sell. Now there's very little data on the number of waste reclaimers in South Africa. A number of studies came up with a number of 62. Why is it moving? Oh, sorry. So a number of studies estimated the number of waste reclaimers to be between 60 to 90,000 in the city. Now, if you compare this to the in the country, now if you compare this to the formal sector in the country, it's close to 2 to 3 times larger than the formal sector. Now, there's very little data on that. There are significant differences in earnings depending on the location, the available recyclable materials, and the different prices that the buyers, and the different prices in materials. Now, these are some of the prices that were studied by different researchers in South Africa. So this shows that the highest number that the waste reclaimers earn is 2,900 Rand. Now, this fluctuates because there's different things at play when it comes to selling recyclable materials. So when you compare this to the minimum wage of South Africa, which is 25 Rand per hour, which amounts to over 4,000 Rand, the amount that waste reclaimers earn is significantly low. Although waste reclaimers contribute to the GDP of the country, as we've mentioned, and in the recycling systems, they remain largely marginalized and are often not paid enough for the work that they do. There is a social stigma still attached or associated with waste reclaiming. And the main drivers of becoming a waste reclaimer is mainly poverty and unemployment, where unemployment in South Africa is a staggering 32.9% and is among the highest in the world. Now, informal recycling is readily accessible for everyone and mostly unregulated. Given the challenges posed by poverty, we cannot underestimate the value of survivalist activities in informal sector to take care of their immediate basic needs. Now we're going to zoom into recycling in Gqeberha, which is located in the Eastern Cape. Although informal recycling such as difficulty to locate waste reclaimers, the fact that most of them are displaced people and they don't have cell phones sometimes. So Nelson Mandela municipality, which is where Gqeberha is located, generates about 600,000 tons of waste annually. Now, out of this waste, 360,000 is deposited at Arlington landfill site, which is the largest landfill site here in Nelson Mandela. Now, from that, only 700 tons is recycled, mainly by waste reclaimers. You may be wondering where the rest of the waste goes to if it's not recycled. These are some of the, I'm sure many of us here, when we walk outside our neighborhoods, we see pictures like these. This is the Swartkops estuary. This leads to the estuaries, the canal from the Motherwell community. This shows the significant importance of the work that waste reclaimers do. Now, if we don't work together with the waste reclaimers, our neighborhoods are going to look like this. And yeah. So, thank you. So the weighted value for household monthly income in Nelson Mandela Bay is around 11,000. And this is per household. And most waste reclaimers also have people or dependents that are depending on the income that they get in. Now, as we've previously mentioned, that one of the scholars mentioned that the amount of that waste reclaimers get per month is 2,000 900 Rand, and they have to take care of their families with that amount of money. Now we cannot, we need to understand that the prices of materials, they fluctuate, and this can affect the income stability of waste reclaimers. This is true to every waste reclaimer, where they often find themselves in highly precarious situations. Incomes are based directly on their work rates, yet subject to the local availability of recyclable materials, as well as the global fluctuation of the commodity prices of recyclable materials that they collect, and the inflation rate. Waste reclaimers contribute significantly to the waste management systems, thus saving the municipalities millions of rands. Not only that, they also contribute significantly to the recycling rates of South Africa, yet they are not paid enough for the work that they do. Now we are introducing you to the participants, or rather the people that we are trying to tell their story here. All the participants in this study, they live in Gqeberha. And the infographic here shows that 13 of them are men and 8 of them are women. So we are only able to interview 22 waste reclaimers. And these are just the demographics that show different people that we got to hear their stories and interview during this process. Our research project explores their narratives of social challenges they face each and every day, and what drives them to keep going despite those challenges. I'm sure when I say, think about a waste reclaimer, these words come to mind for most of us, if not all. We see them as criminals, we see them as dirty, we see them as beggars, but in actual fact, they are the ones that contribute significantly to the recycling systems of not only Gqeberha, but of South Africa and Africa as a whole. Now, this study is trying to change that narrative. So in this presentation, we'll be telling a different story about waste reclaimers, a story that is not usually told. To give a brief overview before Olivia goes into of our research, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to discuss the motivations, what drives them, what makes them to keep going in spite of all this that they face each and every day, what keeps them going. And I'm briefly going to discuss access to resources. What resources do they have access to? What resources don't they have access to? Thank you. Next slide. Now, the main motivations for participants provided for starting recycling informally can be broken down into 6 interlinking categories. So many of these individuals, they recycle to meet their basic needs, to put food on the table, to provide for their families, to take care of the families that cannot go to work because of health issues. These are all the things that we received or we got when we're interviewing the waste reclaimers. We're trying to change, to show you that these individuals not only work with waste, but they also have families to take care of because of the work that they do. Next slide. Now, we also ask them if they have access to resources. As with any job, resources required are able to perform certain actions in order to make an income. So what resources do they use to make their job better? So they mentioned that they need trolleys, they need transport. They even asked if we could help because that's how important this is to them. So those are some of the things that we wanted to discuss today as I move to Olivia, because I see that time is, is against us. So I'm going to hand over to Olivia to take you through the results of our study.
Thanks, Polly. So as you can hear, informal recycling is a complex mix of social constructs, human bodies, policies, discarded objects, skill sets, and livelihoods. In a democracy, the need to face the unjust spatial, social, and environmental components that underpin these relations is vital in reframing informal recyclers as dignified and worthy members of society. Through this research, we are making a conscious attempt to, as Ashil Mbembe suggests, retrieve life and the human from a history of waste. As mentioned, many potential themes could be discussed, but we focus here on 3 specifically, because together they encompass an important component of our research findings and foreground the voices of our participants. The discussion is structured so that you can see some of the most prominent responses on the screen while I give you feedback on where it fits in. One of our objectives was to get an overview of how informal recyclers understand their jobs and what they are doing in society. It became clear that the participants are hard-working individuals with a strong work ethic and more or less fixed working schedule, often linked to waste collection days in the neighborhoods where they work, or days when buyers come to collect at landfill sites. Each participant expressed the ways in which they assume responsibility for their own income in order to survive. This section captures the ways in which the participants view themselves within their workspace, their community, and in society. 5 societal roles expressed by participants became prominent, namely cleaners, providers, informal environmental educators, role models, and community supporters. The most frequent response related to cleaning the environment. This means that participants are aware of the relation between recycling, waste management, environmental concerns, and health problems related to waste. They are equally aware of the ways in which their job is alleviating these issues. Many express that they feel part of something bigger than themselves, especially those who've received some form of recycling training. Another prominent role that the participants highlighted was their position as providers. On average, the participants reported having over 3 people directly dependent on their income. Neliswa, an unmarried 72-year-old buyback center buyer and craftswoman, has 8 dependents, consisting of her children and grandchildren. This was the highest number of dependents recorded. A third common response related to participants' perception of their societal role is the position of informal environmental educator. At least 6 participants saw themselves as bearers of knowledge that must be passed on to other members of their community. While some, such as Neliswa and Nozizwe, actively participate in educational workshops designed to inform their attendees, others simply try to educate other individuals through their actions and informal conversations. Tying in with the educator role was the idea of the role model that also became apparent, particularly amongst older participants. These participants expressed self-confidence about their position as someone who has to set an example in society, and that the knowledge that they have acquired and the person that they've become is worthy of being shared. The participants, in particular buyback center managers and employees, also expressed their concern for the well-being of their community. Many explained that they received very little governmental support and that was a pertinent driver for them to assume a role as active member in the betterment of their community. The oldest buyback centre we visited was established in Motherwell in 1998 and has been operational for 24 years. The most recently established buyback centre started operating in Wilmer Township only this year in January. Both share a commitment to the well-being and upliftment of their community. Neliswa's response summarizes many of the participants' view on their role. It is to work and educate people about recycling as I contribute towards keeping the environment clean, thus improving people's lives. The participants' responses and understandings of their various roles challenge the idea that the informal sector consists of workers with low levels of skills and no transferable knowledge. Waste reclaimers carry a sense of responsibility, take great care to take care of themselves and for others, and understand the economic and environmental benefits of recycling. The discrimination that informal recyclers face is globally widely researched. One of our objectives was to establish what life experiences informal recyclers highlight when asked about discrimination. The long-standing questions around definitions of discrimination is not the focus of this talk, as that would require a whole seminar on its own. For the purposes of this study, discrimination is the act of making unfair distinctions between groups of people. It consists of actions, practices, and policies that are necessarily orientated towards excluding individuals based on their membership to a certain group. One of the questions we asked participants was, have you ever experienced discrimination or that someone has treated you badly? Followed by, why do you say so? 8 participants replied yes, and 13 participants replied no. If a significant number of informal recyclers respond that they've never experienced discrimination or mistreatment, despite evidence suggesting otherwise, it could indicate several potential underlying reasons. It might be that mistreatment in South Africa has become normalized. Some individuals might have become so accustomed to facing discrimination that they perceive it as a normal aspect of their daily lives. They may not recognize certain behaviors or attitudes as discriminatory, especially if they've been exposed to it for such a long time. It might also have to do with the research context and that informal recyclers feel hesitant to discuss discrimination with a stranger. It could also be that admitting to experiencing discrimination can be seen as a form of vulnerability, which the workers try to avoid at all costs. The 8 participants who confirmed that they've experienced discrimination shared various examples illustrating their perceptions of discrimination. 2 spoke about poor treatment from family members and neighbors due to concerns about waste reclaiming as a filthy and unworthy job. 1 participant mentioned their close personal relations, which hinted at potential abuse. 2 participants emphasized the impact of their financial and social status on potential discrimination. Another participant described feeling threatened due to the assumption that working with steel made her and her colleagues wealthier than they actually are. A black male participant shared an incident of racial discrimination in a white neighborhood, but also emphasized his ability to remain positive. Additionally, some participants referenced factors such as instructions from their boss, mental disturbances, provocation, and jealousy. In contrast, 1 participant expressed that the scarcity of jobs reduced discrimination. Another participant explained that he has never experienced discrimination because as a buyback center manager and reclaimer, he and his team asks for permission to access spaces such as hospital and shop premises before collecting recyclables. According to him, being polite and asking permission lowers your chances of being discriminated against. Another participant highlighted the role of race, saying, "I've never had any experience with someone who, even the other people," pointing to me, the researcher, saying, "Sorry, like white people." This instance emphasizes the sensitivity of discussing racial differences widely associated with discrimination. One participant stated that he's never experienced discrimination and attributed it to his Christian faith. This diverse range of responses highlights the multifaceted and complex nature of discrimination faced by informal recyclers in various aspects of their life. This is a preliminary discussion on these findings, and we intend to delve deeper over the next few months. The final theme is pride. Pride can be defined as a feeling of satisfaction derived from one's own achievements, the achievements of those that you are closely affiliated with, or from qualities, knowledge, or possessions. It is a consciousness of one's own dignity and can act as a form of self-respect. Theorists have noted that literature on informally employed workers' well-being is rare, especially in relation to the South African labour market. The participants lead complex lives that cannot be reduced to the role that they are playing in waste management in South Africa. It was important for us to include questions on positive aspects, such as pride, to move beyond the parameters of recyclers' job role and into their personal sense of development, belonging, and skill. We generally ended the interview with the question, "What are you most proud of in your life?" In many ways, we shared what migration scholar Natasha Iskander described her experiences were while researching migrant workers in Qatar in the build-up towards the 2022 Soccer World Cup. Many of her interview participants, assuming that she was a human rights researcher or a journalist, began by listing their ample grievances and challenges. She adds, "Their body language tended to be closed, and their answers perfunctory, reflecting a sense, I suspect, that although the information would be used, it would have little impact on their conditions. In those instances, I recorded their answers, but then gently added questions about skill, along with what they'd learned, what they felt mastery in, and how they shared their knowledge with their colleagues. With that turn, the interview invariably opened up. Informal recyclers often experience various senses of pride that highlight their resilient mindset. The most prominent sources of pride include self-employment, strong work ethic, knowledge and skills acquisition, Participants also expressed a strong work ethic, regardless of where they find themselves in the recycling value chain. They expressed that they are proud of themselves for being able to negotiate or talk to people, as this allows them to do their job better. While some factors like weather conditions hinder some of them, usually because of the fear of getting ill while working in harsh conditions, others would work tirelessly for long hours in any conditions in order to sell enough recyclables. Many participants continuously seek to expand their knowledge and learn news related to waste management for the workshops that they've attended on this topic. They take pride in their ability to adapt. In their ability to adapt and learning new technologies and methods to position themselves as knowledgeable on recyclable materials. Our participants also often spoke with a witty sense of humor. They expressed self-love and self-awareness and exhibited confidence in their abilities. This confidence was particularly prevalent in participants who had more than a decade's experience of working with recycling. They take pride in knowing that they are making a meaningful contribution while knowing where their limits are. We have noted that participants often explain that they build strong relationships with immediate family members, the communities in which they live and work, and others in the industry. They value the and outside of their profession, from their independence to dedication to their ability to learn, their self-awareness, confidence, and the meaningful relationships that they cultivate. Coming back to the original motivations participants expressed to start recycling, it is interesting to note the links between motivation
Now, would like to conclude with a few thoughts, prominent takeaways and ideas for the path ahead. It is essential that we recognize informal recyclers for the invaluable role they play circumstances they face on a daily basis. It is crucial to view them through their own perspective and not make our own assumptions about those working with waste. By acknowledging their positive impact on the environment of waste reclaimers. When we solely focus on the negative, we limit our understanding and perpetuate stereotypes. Now, earlier on in the presentation, I showed you everything that comes to mind when we think of waste reclaimers. Today, we'd like everyone here and everyone watching online to think about this when you think of waste reclaimers. Think of them as of the environment and those that contribute significantly to the GDP of the country and to the recycling value chain. Now, numerous initiatives and research projects are underway in South Africa to find appropriate solutions to integrate the informal waste sector into the local waste economy. There has been a joint effort from organized African Reclaimer Organization, South African Waste Picker Association, the environmental justice organizations such as Groundwork, and researchers to reshape the recycling policy landscape. This has resulted in the official waste picker integration guidelines aimed at municipalities. These guidelines emphasize the importance of expanding the recycling economy in a way expertise held by informal recyclers. This has the potential to improve their job security, working conditions, and incomes. Now here are a few consolidated takeaway messages based on what we have learned when we spoke to the participants. We cannot stress the importance of collaboration enough between different disciplines, municipalities, and businesses. And with this collaboration between SST and CANRAD is one example that we can collaborate. Environmental issues cannot be dealt with in isolation. We need to come together and we need to work together to find solutions for the environmental issues such as plastic pollution that is plaguing our environment. To address there is a necessity to social issues simultaneously, as justice is made up of a combination of social, political, financial, ethical, and environmental aspects. When studying informal recycling, it is important to approach it in a holistically. One method is by looking at the sustainability triple bottom line, which includes social, but shared goals are vital components to reducing waste, carbon emissions, and bettering lives and livelihoods of informal recyclers. Understanding the underpinning links between sustainability and waste reclaimer inclusion efforts is crucial to create a more equitable and environmentally responsible waste management system. This will indicate whether informal recycling is sustainable or not. And if not, as shown today, discussing only challenges captures us in loops where what we think we know overshadows what we might learn. But by focusing on the positive aspects, we can move towards a place where members of the public's view of informal recyclers are more accurate and dignified. We would like academia, the government, municipalities, businesses, NGOs, and other stakeholders to take action. We know everyone here knows their position, in which capacity you have attended or joined this discussion today. Some of these suggestions would be more collection and sorting of recyclables. We need to ensure that we provide waste reclaimers with necessary training and education on sustainable waste management, including proper sustainable environment. And we need to involve the community in waste management and recycling efforts, raising awareness about the importance of waste reclaimers and informal recyclers and their the most important thing that we would like you to take action in is to change the narrative. We can only achieve the above mentioned actions if we change the way we see waste.
Two questions. Yes, thank you very much. There's one over there. Thanks, Susan. If you can assist us with the mic, please. One more question, and then I'll hand it over to Nhlakani as our second person who's going to ask a question. Yeah. Thank you, my leader.
Oh, okay. Hello. My name is Blaauw, and I'm currently doing my BSc in Honors in Environmental Geography. My research is focused on looking at waste pickers, their impact in small towns such as state level. So, what I wanted to ask, right, first and foremost, is the quantity of the waste pickers that you guys, okay, you call them reclaimers, you call them waste pickers, so that's that. I wanted to know the quantity, the amount of quantity that these guys are able to bring back to the buyback center, because I only heard that the national figures that you were talking about. I wanted to know that on top of the ones that you did manage to, that you did manage to get interviews from, how much was it, the quantity of their material, the types of materials that were bought into them, and then I also wanted to know, there might not be something that I heard about the provincial integrated waste management plan within this place, as much as other places such as the OR Tambo district. Okay, so that's what I wanted to know.
Thanks.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Gqeberha. I work at CANRAD. Thank you to both Balisa and Dr. Lords for that presentation. It's been interesting watching this this study in the making, just passing through the office and seeing the hard work happening. I'm interested in understanding if you found any peculiarities with working or conducting research specifically within the Eastern Cape context. I'm aware, Dr. Lutz, you've done similar work, I don't know how similar it was, but similar work elsewhere. And so I wonder if there were any specific peculiarities within the Eastern Cape context that you could bring us into.
Great, thank you very much for the questions. I'm going to keep it short for time. The first thing that we found, a lot of the places do not have scales. They don't necessarily use scales. So they would pay people based on a bag basis. So if you bring a bag of plastic bottles, then they would say, okay, around 20 Rand. So these were some of the places that we spoke to. Not everyone has scales, or they had a scale and now it's broken. There were multiple issues with weighing materials. So we do not have concrete numbers on these. We do have on incomes, which is similar to the findings that we presented that were from studies that were conducted by other researchers, which is rather similar. Yeah, and then I think the next step for us would be to really delve into the integrated waste management plan here and in relation to other places, if we compare them, what that would yield, where Gqeberha stands in relation to the rest of the country. Yeah, so, and then on your question, it's definitely less formalized in what I've experienced in specifically conducting research in Gqeberha. You hear and see a lot of initiatives by the informal industry in places like Johannesburg, where they are trying to make people aware of the role of waste reclaimers in the city. We didn't find that so much here. Palisa would maybe be able to speak more on that because she's been here longer. But that was definitely one thing. There's not necessarily a formalization amongst the informal sector, which was quite interesting for me to see.
Yeah, I agree with what Olivia just said now. So the informal sector is it's even difficult to find the waste reclaimers to interview or to talk to. So it's not really formalized, unlike in Johannesburg, where you have associations for waste reclaimers, where you can just go to the association if you're looking for waste reclaimers. In the city, the municipality even doesn't have a number of the waste reclaimers in the city. So yeah, it's not really organized or formalized. In terms of your question, so the buyback centers sometimes we spoke to some of the informal buyback centers, and they are quite guarded when it comes to that kind of information. So we did not get the number of recyclables that are received at buyback centers and the types of materials that are received at different buyback centers. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much to the two panelists. Can you please give them one round of applause, please? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of our program, but just before we depart, I would just like to call upon Ms. Janine Osborne, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Sustainable Seas Trust, and she will close the program for us. Just one more disclaimer, there's food outside, so that when we're done, we can just mingle outside and do some networking that is so desired. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Shall I use which one?
Online, this is for our online audience.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Janine Osborne. I'm the CEO of Sustainable Seas Trust, and it is my distinct pleasure to be giving the vote of thanks this evening. I think the very first vote of thanks is to you. We know that your time is valuable. We know that you can be doing many different things with your time, but you chose to spend it here. You chose to spend it with these amazing people, sharing in the research that you've done, and we don't take that lightly. So thank you very much to you. Secondly, thank you, Olivia, Palisa, but specifically, Olivia, to you and your team, CANRAD. Thank you very much for organizing this event. It has been an incredibly interesting event, and I hope all of us will agree on the fact that it's been incredibly insightful. So thank you for organizing it. Thank you for choosing to partner with SST on this research. The challenge of addressing waste is one of those interesting things that reaches across the entire plastics value chain. It reaches all of us. It touches all of us. And no one organization can tackle this massive challenge on its own. We need to collaborate to be able to unlock systems-appropriate solutions. And so thank you for partnering with SST on this. Thank you also for undertaking this extremely important piece of research. We at SST view the work that the waste reclaimers do as incredibly important. It's the bedrock of the recycling economy in South Africa and Africa. And as such, we feel very strongly that the more research that could be undertaken to understand this important role that they play is really important, and the role that they play in contributing to a circular, a blue, and a just economy. It's really important. As we've heard today, waste pickers face all sorts of challenges in their daily lives. Besides the obvious health risks that are associated with dealing with waste, they face many societal challenges as well. Most people dismiss waste pickers as annoyances or nuisances, despite the fact that they are very significant in terms of recycling in South Africa. We know from audited recycling stats that waste reclaimers contribute to 80% of recyclables that are recycled in South Africa. That's significant. 80 to 90% by weight of paper and packaging is recovered by these informal players. But most people don't understand that. We see them in our streets, we see them digging through our waste, and we see them as nuisances. But we need to understand, we need to take ownership of understanding the role that they play in waste management. So SST really does view the work that the informal players play in the recycling and the circular economy as foundational. Through our own work, we hope that we will assist in creating an enabling environment to empower small businesses and collectors to be able to move themselves up the value chain and create income opportunities for themselves, thereby contributing to a just transition to a blue economy in South Africa and for Africa. And we are so pleased to have been able to play even such a small role in the work that you are doing and in making tonight's event a success, because I do think it has been a success, not only in bringing people together that are interested and like-minded, but also in untapping some of the information that is necessary for us to transition to a more circular economy. So as SST, I stand here to say thank you, and we look forward to collaborating further with you in the future and with all of you that are represented in the room. It's the only way we are going to move towards a circular economy in South Africa and Africa. So thank you very much to all of you again.
The power is vested in me. I can now officially declare this congregation, and you can finally close it. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Who gets the power?